not a ton. There's not a ton of other offerings that kind of have that, can kind of say the same thing, at least at this point. A lot of people are trying to put that together. SolarEdge is trying to put an all-in-one solution together. Tesla, of course, is trying to do the same thing. So people are moving in the direction of what we have today, which I think speaks to kind of the power of what we're doing. So, the microinverters are enphase, the storage devices are enphase, the monitoring app is all enphase, the support, customer support, warranty, everything there is just all going to be, enphase. So there's a lot of benefits to that.
Can you talk about the warranty for a second, Ian?
Yeah, sure. So warranty for micros, as you guys know, is 25 years. That's a standard industry or standard enphase warranty. So you don't have to pay more to get to 25 years. Oftentimes,
with SolarEdge, guys, just so you know.
With SolarEdge, you do have to pay up to get to the 25-year warranty. Any string inverter is gonna be like a standard 10 or 12 with a pay up option to 25. So we kind of stand on our own there. And then in terms of the battery, for the battery warranty, we have a 10-year standard warranty or 4,000 cycles. And there's nothing super special about that because, we're using kind of standard battery chemistry technology. We're not building, enphase isn't building the batteries. We're sourcing third-party batteries and then using our intelligence behind it, our microinverters behind it. So with the storage, we're going standard 10, which is pretty comparable. Tesla does a 10-year. I think Generac does a 10-year. Everybody else that's, noteworthy, I think, is doing a similar 10-year warranty.
Okay. How does that stack up against so really, I'm only really seeing Tesla. I don't know about you guys, but Tesla's like the main battery thing. Generac's popped up a couple times. Is Sonnen out of the market?
We still hear about them and see them. I think they've had enough trouble with reliability and stuff like that it's we're not so worried about them, I don't think.
Okay.
As we are Tesla. Tesla does a good job with marketing and the rest. So I'd say they're probably our number one competitor, and then Generac will probably be number two. Sonnen's going to be behind them by a long shot, and then SolarEdge is trying to get their act together with a storage solution, and so that's forthcoming.
And the LG Chems, are they kind of taking a backseat? I just saw that Bolt thing that they paid up 1.9 billion or something like that to Chevy this morning for that. Is that the same technology? Are they really fallen off, or?
Yeah, they continue to have issues with the batteries. Not just the car batteries, but they had a recall on their home energy storage batteries too. So, they've moved on from that particular platform, and they'll make that claim, but still, I think that's soured the name in the marketplace.
Okay, got it. So when we're running into Tesla, and because I think Tesla, our offering right now, what we're selling is and if you have some insight on this would be good too. But we're selling a basically small, medium, large combo at 10 kW, 20 kW, 30 kW is the stack that we have. So guys, just so you guys know, if we haven't talked about this before, every enphase battery is a 3.3 kW. So a 10 is actually 3.3s into one unit, right? So and then we'll stack the units like that. What are you saying, like from enphase, from the best ways to beat Tesla? Because I think the offering that we're coming up to is like kind of in line with is it a 12.5 kW through Tesla?
So the Tesla Powerwall is a 13 kilowatt hour, and so they're stacking one or two of those. So the comparable enphase would be, technically would be like a 10 and a 3 to get exact like for like on the spec sheet. But I think, oftentimes we try to sell the merits of, the all-in-one, the better reliability, the enphase brand sort of quality, and like a lot of people will just try to compete with a 10 instead of like making it a 10 and a 3. So I think you guys are looking at it the right way from the perspective of, here are the three options. One is going to be kind of your home essentials, another is going to be like whole home, and then the third's going to be whole home plus, if you will, where you're getting, you're doing a lot more than maybe the average consumer in a home.
So I guess that's where my first question would come in, Ian. My name's Dave, by the way. I'm one of the new guys.
What's up, Dave?
No, not much, man. So I had one customer really dive deep into this. So I don't know if this will help you guys, but like the difference between what you guys are offering and what Tesla offers, right? It's a 12.5 kW, but they can only charge to like 80%, and the battery's only designed to cycle 1,000 times, right? And then its efficiency like falls off. So the fact that your batteries your system's charged and can cycle 4,000 times, and I think that's designed to charge to 90% capacity, right?
So I believe we can charge all the way to 100%. So we do we're above like a 95% depth of discharge.
Okay. So like so what I've been explaining to people is that like that 12.5 kW stack from Tesla is actually less efficient than our 10 kW stack because we can store more energy because we can get over that 90% hurdle. But what I'm hearing from a lot of these customers that are getting quotes from Tesla is that they have like a 3-day battery capacity. And that's not the information that I've been able to gather for the enphase system. So what's a realistic, so if we install a 10 kW stack, what's a realistic power supply? What are we offering there?
It's a tough question to answer because every situation is going to be different. There's so many variables at each situation. So you're going to have stated kilowatt hours and stated power. Those two things, but what you don't know is what is the largest load in the house and what are people trying to run and for how long. And then also what is the weather condition. So, if you have a 10 kilowatt hour battery and you're trying to run basic essentials and you've got access to sunlight, you're going to be running that for forever. There's going to be no end to your microgrid capability because you're constantly recharging that battery from the sun. If you're making an assumption that there's very little sunlight and you're trying to run whole home, then the number of hours is gonna reduce dramatically, and it's just a matter of like what is the demand on the situation.
Right. I would say that a lot of our customers are looking at inclement weather, right? So there's a hurricane and they're out of power for a day and a half. Right. Yep. So we're going to use essentials, right? I'm coaching them into saying, listen, you get a couple of lights, you get your modem, you get your refrigerator, freezer, you can circulate air, but not necessarily blow hot or cold, right? Trying to reduce what their expectations would be for how much this system would be able to produce. Now, the research that I've done shows that like a 10K stack is only going to give them a few hours of power if they don't have access to recharging the battery. Is that accurate, or is it capable of doing more?
Yeah, no, that's accurate. So it's going to provide what it can provide. So if it's fully charged at the point of losing power from the utility, then you're going to get 10 kilowatt hours. And then from there, it's just a math problem. What is the load in the house? And then, for how many hours will I be able to run that amount of kilowatts? So yeah, there's a finite number. You just kind of have to run the math. And something that might help you is we have a estimator tool online. Mm-hmm. It's estimator.enphaseenergy.com, and that you can actually plug in all of the individual loads the homeowner's trying to use, and size the battery, and it'll tell you for how many hours you have essential autonomy for cloudy events, and then how many hours you might have for sunny events.
Gotcha. I have that saved on my dashboard, so I use that for sure.
Cool.
Is Tesla just pretty much out of line with making that much of a blanketed statement? Is that like the kind of from the sales perspective here? It'd just be like, look,
I've heard that
the way that this works, right? Like, because Tesla is like known for that, right? They're trying to make a cookie cutter scenario for everything. But I guess just explaining basically what you just said is the best way to go about it, right? Look, depends on a million different things, and
yeah, the specs are the specs. The specs are the specs. We can do the same thing. If you pair like for like, they don't have any magic capability to do more than what's stated in the spec. And really neither do we. So again, it comes down to consumer expectation, consumer behavior, after the grid goes down.
Mm-hmm. So stacking it up to Tesla, what are like the 3 biggest advantages of enphase, right? So the monitoring system is all tied into one, right? We have that's like the big win there. The cycling, right? It's 4,000 versus 1. Is that 1 correct, Ian?
No, Tesla I think has a similar cycle count. It's like 4,000 or 5,000.
But for degradation, it's the same, like what Dave was talking about before.
Yeah, I think so. So ours is 70% after 10 years. We'll still guarantee 70% power. So what that 70% charge capability. So I mean that tells me that these things are going to last significantly longer than just the 10-year period, albeit at like a lower charge capability. But I think we're similar there in terms of the spec. I don't know that there's a big difference.
So what is the warranty on this? So the warranty it's a 10-year warranty or 4,000 cycles, whichever comes first, right? But then you said
Correct.
After 10 years, they're still saying that it's 70%. Is that is there like a prorated warranty for 15 or something like that, or?
We don't have extended warranties, but yeah, I mean, if you read the language of the warranty, it states you will be able to be at 70% of charge capability, before at year 10. And so if you're anything less than 70% of charge capability, then that's a warrantable situation and you could get a new one.
Okay, got it.
But I think, the reality is like, you guys don't want to get into the conversation of cycle count because it's irrelevant. Our market is strictly a backup market. And so really all we're doing is looking at the number of years. Like you're never gonna outcycle the 10-year period, if that makes sense, because we're not daily cycling. We're just basically using it for a few times a year, for backup events.
It almost exclusively comes up with someone who moved from California, and they have to use it regularly in California to offset the peak hour usage.
Yep. So there's no time of use. There's no, we have net metering. So all of the things that we use for, grid tied PV are still in place. Therefore, there's no economic benefit to running that thing day in and day out. So you could just explain that and then say from there, the cycle count is irrelevant. Everybody has a 10-year at that point.
Okay. Can you explain some of the flow of power, right? So systems on the roof, power goes out. What happens from there, right? Is the system's charging the battery's powering the main service?
Yeah, I mean, so when you drop into a microgrid, the battery turns on, the solar remains on. And so you still have full access to the sunlight and the power from the sun during the day. And that can either, service loads in the home, which it'll do first. And then if there's excess power beyond that, it's just going to charge up the batteries and keep them at a good state of charge. So when the sun sets, you have access to that full battery bank.
Okay. And this is not happened frequently, but it's happening more and more. So I'm getting a couple of customers that I've worked with in the past or whatever, and it's usually higher income areas, but they have backup generators, right, at their home. What's the benefit of like stacking these, right? Someone that has like a solar system with a backup generator, and now he's like curious of looking into a battery. Because I mean, my answer to these people has been like, there isn't any. Is there any benefit of like, having both of these systems side by side?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have, certainly if you start with solar plus storage and you add generator, that's just going to kind of augment your capability in cloudy events. If you've already got a generator, then really the benefit of going with batteries is just that you're not having to put as much fuel into the generator itself, which could save you money, and it could also kind of hit the emotion of people that just don't want to be using fossil fuels anymore.
Sure.
But I think if they've got a big old generator that's able to manage kind of the entire home, it's a harder sell to tell them, yeah, you should throw a bunch of batteries in there too. They're going to want to they're going to want to be motivated by trying to get themselves away from the generator, the maintenance of it, the noise, the fumes, the fossil fuel inputs, like all of that. That'll have to be part of the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with this next. So we're offering both options, right? We offer a 24 kW Generac gas powered whole home generator. And now we're offering like the stacks, right? The 10, 20 or 30 kW enphase. So, you know, comparing these side by side, the 20 kW battery enphase, right, is about half the cost. I'm sorry, double the cost as a generator. So from like when I'm using these side by side, why would someone buy a generator? Why would someone buy a battery over a generator if they're getting essentially the 20 kW versus 20 kW, which is double the price? So obviously there's the economic side, right? You're getting you're sidestepping that whole fossil fuel piece, right? It's not loud. It's not, you know, it's not going to cost you anything on the gas bill. Is there anything else that I should point out there?
No, I mean, that's it, you know, like you kind of control your own destiny. And I think it's really an emotional thing. It's less like dollars and cents. I mean, you could probably string it out over enough time where you're eliminating that input cost of natural gas or whatever it is. You're eliminating the maintenance calls. You're eliminating sort of the headache of having to manage a big fossil fuel machine, which is a lot harder. You know, ideally with solar plus storage, it's, you know, it's, you put it in and sun kind of does its work and the system kind of runs itself and you don't have to do a whole lot of thought beyond that. And I think that's what's kind of getting people's interest. Mainly just, hey, I don't want to have a noisy generator that's going to be costly and bad for the environment. I mean, I think that's really it. So people are paying off.
The service contract, oil changes, things like that too. That I guess that plays a part. Is there any maintenance on this thing at all? Right. So you plug this thing.
And
so is there any maintenance on the batteries? Right. So we go out, we wire this thing up, right? Is there like so like my generator, for example, every Wednesday it cycles, right? So it turns on, it does its thing for 30 minutes and then turns off, right? So is it, are the batteries doing anything like that to keep fresh, or anything that we need to do, or that's, you know, another contractor should do to kind of keep it going, make sure that it's going to work when the outage happens?
No, not really. I mean, that's the benefit of lithium ion. Like, you don't have to like water the batteries. You don't have to maintain them in any way. And so, yeah, I mean, like, it's ideally a set it and forget it proposition. Now there can always be hitches with the microgrid that need, you know, software updates or, you know, just troubleshoots, and that happens from time to time. But in general, no, the idea is they're just installed and they're set to do their work, and that's kind of it. And that's the beauty of it, and that's why people are paying up for it. Yeah.
Is Tesla the same, set it and forget it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're kind of doing the same thing from that perspective. Again, I think what you don't get with Tesla is the all-in-one. As much as they're going to try to push their own inverter, you've got to look at their app to understand what's going on with the battery. And then you've got to look at Enphase or SolarEdge's app to really understand what's going on with the PV system. And, you know, from the beginning, those two things were not really meant to work together. They're AC coupled and you can make it work. But there are certain benefits to having microinverters on the roof, microinverters in the battery, in all Enphase. Like there's gonna be fewer outages as a result of, you know, the battery kind of once the battery gets to a high state of charge with Tesla, it's gonna use frequency shifting to preserve itself so that it doesn't overcharge from the sun. And when it does that, it essentially tells the PV system to shut down for a certain period of time so that it can discharge and then, you know, not be at 100% state of charge and then, you know, be in a position where it could be compromised. And so those little outage situations can happen frequently with Tesla, and with Enphase, you know, they're dynamic enough where if the battery is at a full state of charge, it's not going to tell the PV system, hey, you need to shut down because we're worried about overcharge. It's going to say, hey, continue to do your thing, continue to support any of the loads in the house that need power. We're not worried about what you're doing on the roof. So that's one of the big things that we can bring to the table, is fewer kind of like outage situations just throughout the day.
What
Um,
about,
What's the danger for that? Does it short? Like if like what happens if it's like trying to charge a fully charged battery? Is it just, does it degrade the battery faster? What's the danger to that from like a consumer standpoint?
yeah, I mean, if you overcharge the battery, you could ruin it basically. So you could have a failure.
Okay. And
So
then
where's
what?
the power
Battery
sitting?
stuff?
Is it just is it sitting on the roof or what? Like where is the power being? If the house is not consuming the power, and if it's not shutting it down, where does the power go?
Yeah, so we can curtail, and that's like one of the key benefits of enphase micros is like we just have the smarts and the capability to essentially match the home load from what's produced on the roof. So we'll just curtail power.
So if there's no load use in the home, the battery is fully charged, it's going to stop the PV production, correct?
In the cases of Tesla, yeah, I mean, because if they're AC coupled with,
And specifically to your product, right? So like the battery is fully charged, right? And there's nobody home in the house, so they're not consuming any energy. It's going to stop the solar production. Like your system's designed to stop and shut down the solar production, right?
yeah, we'll curtail power. If
Go.
there's literally 0 watts, like watts of energy being used in the home, then yeah, the PV system will just shut itself down.
Okay.
And that's to prevent overcharge and damage to the battery, which Tesla doesn't have.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Dan,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? So I was also reading that you guys have a technology where the battery can sense maybe the switch can sense the load in the house, and the solar power can go directly into the home and bypass the battery, so it doesn't run the battery as much if it can meet the capacity in the house.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about a little bit here. And then further to that, when we come out with the IQ8 inverter, which is actually happening this quarter, we should have a bunch hit the market in the next couple months. You could actually have
load control.
What we're calling sunshine. I think we're calling sunshine backup, which is a little bit lame, but the idea is that you could actually install no batteries, put in one of those smart switches, have the IQ8s up on the roof, and then from there, if the sun's out, you could support home loads as much as you want. Like those inverters will actually stay on and grid form during an outage, and they don't need storage to do that function.
Just to throw out something very quickly here, there's going to be a significant cost increase to the IQ8s. Just to throw that out, right? So this isn't going to just roll out like a regular IQ7 or 7 Plus or 6 or anything like that. There's going to be, you could talk to your boy Ian about this one while we got him on the phone, but.
well,
I have
mean,
a question on the. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Pam. Go, Pam.
I have a question back to the maintenance. When you're saying that, there has to be software updates, can you do that remotely, or does somebody actually need to go out and do that to the battery system?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the benefit of what we do. We have what's called the Envoy device. You guys probably know it's built into the combiner panel.
Right.
And so that Envoy can pull and push data, firmware updates, like we do it all the time. And so the benefit there is,
So nobody has to actually go out there, is what?
no,
Right.
I mean, if we need to push like basic software stuff, we can always do that through the cloud, and that's easy. There may be, I don't know, there may be just local troubleshoot things that need to occur on site because we just can't figure out what's going on with the microgrid, and there's something,
Okay.
just something up with it. Because each home is different, and we're learning, and we find stuff that we haven't seen for the first time as this product rolls out. So we just have situations like that come up from time to time.
Thank you.
I heard about heat production of the batteries, that Tesla gets hot and enphase doesn't, or what's the story with that?
Well, the battery chemistry is a big differentiator for us. So the Tesla battery is essentially their car battery. So that thing is, meant to be in a car, not necessarily in a home. It's a nickel metal cobalt technology. That's the chemistry. And so it's way less stable than the enphase battery. And so it's more prone to like a thermal runaway event. If it's punctured or something is going wrong with the battery, it can really take off and catch on fire. Enphase, on the other hand, has lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry, which is a heck of a lot safer And because we use that chemistry, we have what's called a 9540A certification. It's 9540A. And what that certification does is basically tells fire departments and folks that are making decisions about code that the enphase battery will not result in a massive fire thermal runaway event because of the chemistry itself. So that's definitely something to talk about. You know, and the result is the battery is a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit less energy dense, but we get that 9540A kind of guarantee where the thing is.
You cut out there for a second, Ian, for the last second. So guys, this is, well, Ian's coming back.
It's just certified not to. It's where Tesla, you know, may.
So guys, this is actually becoming an issue on the inspection side, right? So the inspectors are basically they're updating the codes as this is happening. And what'll happen is if you have a finished basement or certain areas and the barrier isn't a fireproof barrier in between first floor and second floor, they'll make you install that, right? So that could be a massive, massive cost, right? So what he's talking about in the code is huge right now, right? Because if you have one of these, you know, the batteries have to be inside, they can't be outside, and there needs to be basically fire barriers if it doesn't have this code passing, right? So depending on the inspector that you get, right, if there's not that barrier, they'll make you install it, right? So you need to be able to go and put all that in between the main property and, you know, either the basement and the main house or the outside and the inside, depending on how that's set up. So that's a big thing. We're starting to run into that now. We're seeing it more and more.
That's for all batteries, not just.
Well,
No.
that's what we're talking about right now. It's not for enphase because of the rating that it has on the fire side. So, but it will be for Tesla. It will be for some of these other, you know, other products. Hey guys, if you have a 9, you can hop. If not, we can, you know, everybody stay on. Actually, New York, we're hanging out anyways on here for a minute to go over some stuff, but you got a 9 and you guys can hop off.
The last thing I would mention is, you guys might know this, but you know, the other thing is enphase uses multiple microinverters inside our battery. And so with that, we get redundancy. And so there's never going to be like a battery outage because, you know, each Encharge 10 has 12 microinverters in it. And so if one of them fails, the other 11 are still operating at full power. And so you have, you know, over 90% of your power capacity without like a full outage. The Tesla Powerwall, on the other hand, is driven by a single string inverter. You know, just like SolarEdge is with their single string inverter. And so if the Tesla Powerwall inverter fails or is struggling with it, you know, struggling for some reason and lower on the power, it's going to compromise that entire battery. So we do build in that microinverter benefit to the storage side of the equation too. And you should talk about that because you're already talking about microinverters benefits on the roof, which are, you know, no single failure point, resiliency to shade, dust, debris. I mean, you're talking about that stuff for the rooftop. You might as well hammer on that same point for batteries.
Never even considered to bring that up. So the batteries run in parallel and Teslas run in series.
Yeah.
Okay. My last question here is based on customer interaction, right, with the app. Because one of the things that comes up is that the Tesla app lets you load control and select what's working and what's getting turned off. Like how interactive is the enphase app? Because I've actually yet to put my hand on it myself.
Yeah, so if you build in the load control feature, it's pretty intuitive, and it gives the homeowner an opportunity to turn up to 4 individual circuits on and off. And so yeah, from there, there's a dry contactor built into the npower switch that has 4 slots essentially for individual loads, and those can be toggled on and off in the app very, very easily.
Are those typically reserved for heavy loads or just like your basic stuff?
Not reserved for anything. It's up to you guys, up to the designer. Probably makes most sense to leverage the highest consumption loads in the house so that you can draw out the battery capability for longer. So I would say, like air conditioning units, well pumps, things that you can live without for a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is, but are major draws on that system, you probably want to remove from the microgrid. Yeah,
I did a couple other things.
Sorry, I got Marco in the car, who's he's leads our field apps engineering team, so he's listening in. He's got a couple things to say.
Yeah, so on the load shedding, there's really two main reasons. The first is when you design your microgrid and the loads in the microgrid, the National Electrical Code requires the single largest load that's on that backup, in the microgrid has to be able to be supported by just the battery. So even though it may be daylight, you may have solar producing in excess of what the battery power can do. The backup, the largest single load has to be covered by the battery. And let's say the dryer's running and there's a utility outage, you don't want that dryer running if it's going to overload the battery right off the bat, right? So what the load control allows you to do is it mimics the MID, the microgrid interconnect device that isolates the microgrid from the utility. So the mPower smart switch, that MID in there, it mimics that. And then when you go into a backup mode, it drops those large loads that are over the power that the battery just will never be able to run, right? So that's the first use case. The second is this other use case where, if you have, let's say, an air conditioning and a dryer and a range, and, your battery system is sized to support those individual loads if they're running by themselves, that's when you can set it such that when there is backup mode, it turns those off, right? It sheds those large loads. But let's say the user is savvy at home. It's like, you know what? I'd like to heat up some food on the stove, or it's really sunny out. I'd like to turn the air conditioning on. They can override that and use that single largest load, right? And the override for the homeowner is like kind of an option. And you certainly don't want to do it if there's like a really large load, like an air conditioning, 50 amp air conditioning unit, you've got 40 amps of battery, that'll never run that air conditioning unit. So you just want that always to be off when there's a backup mode. And that just then also allows you to not have to necessarily relocate that load if you're doing whole home backup into, on the supply side of the mPower smart switch. So there's a whole bunch of, benefits of the load control.
So you can run, so you can do like an overload. So let's say if it's an extremely sunny day, your battery's charged, so it's only when your system is producing way in excess, the system would then read it that way, and then you could run all three items without, taking all that power from the battery.
So the controls currently basically shed the large loads, and then there's a homeowner override if they want to bring it in. We don't yet have where it automatically brings them in, depending on solar. That's certainly cool recommendation we could look into in the future, but there's also with variable solar, you never know when a cloud comes in. So yeah, there's definitely things we're gonna improve over time, but like it doesn't do that automatically today. It's kind of a manual over. Last thing you want to do is well, yeah. So we don't have those automated controls yet, but that's a good recommendation. I can. We're going to add more dynamic load control in the next, I would say 6 to 18 months in other releases of hardware and software solutions. And that I'm pretty sure, these are kind of the things that we'll start introducing as well.
So on a sunny day, you would be able to overload it. That you could override it and then overload the system, correct?
Yeah, technically, yes, you could.
And there's a different monitoring system for that, so you can do it all on your computer. Is that how that works?
It's all with the Enlighten mobile app, which is both available on the web as well as on the smartphone.
Okay.
I've currently gotten a question
directly on your phone and just like start dropping them from there, or putting them back on the same mic on the same app that they're already using for the solar.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. Yeah, and it's really easy. I'll send you guys some screenshots of what that looks like if you want.
That'd be great.
Yes, I'd like to see that.
To switch it up a little bit with the string inverters, is there anything new with the technology? Anything, any updates, upgrades that they have with like the optimizer or anything like that with SolarEdge?
Not really. I mean, there's nothing groundbreaking that they're doing at this point. They're trying, as I mentioned before, they are folding in a storage solution that's all SolarEdge. But is it AC coupled or DC coupled, Marco? Which SolarEdge solution?
Actually, I think it's DC coupled.
SolarEdge is still DC, probably going the way of extinction. I think everybody's trying to move to an AC coupled, which is what enphase and Tesla is doing. But yeah, nothing groundbreaking on strings. I think everyone's trying to move away from it.
I recently had a customer who has a larger house, larger system. He wants to do batteries and a Generac. When I was talking to Achilles, he said that the software to do that, to add the Generac, isn't going to be till later next year. Is that correct? Like, what's the timeline on that for?
So it's actually now. We're about to release the software, so you can
So I can sell it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's a approved generator list that I think still needs to be published. So yeah, hang on till I think the next week or two. We're going to be releasing a lot of this information. I'll make sure you get it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any questions we need to ask? Like anything we need to kind of look out for when those type of situations arise? Like,
Almost done with the conference call.
Sorry, say that question again.
Like, is there any specific questions we should be asking the homeowners, like, or guidelines we need to know when it has to do with both Generac and, the ensemble?
I think not really. I mean, if they haven't selected a generator yet, then you kind of have an open slate
Gotcha.
to like go design it as you like. If
Mhm.
you're coming into a situation that has a pre-existing generator, it may be more complicated because
Gotcha.
we have certain ones that we work with, others we don't. And the input for the end power switch is 60 amp max.
And is the input on the smart switch for the generator?
It is, yep. So
do you have any schematics? There used to be on some of the web pages some nice schematics that kind of outline different options. Can you send those over if you have them?
Of the generator input, or just in
Like
general?
of all the components put together, like with options,
Sure.
like how you may want to tie into a home, whether sub panel or main panel or.
Yeah, we have a planning guide that's got some sample lines on it.
Yeah, just something simple like that would be great.
Okay. Any other questions for me or Marco? I got him in the car.
Yeah, the generator, a couple things. So the generator, we're not going to support manual start generators. There's some compliance issues with doing that. Where the two main control interfaces, so they have to be permanent generators with either a 2-wire start or a grid sense start. So, the major brands, Generac, Kohler, Briggs and Stratton, a lot of the models within their product line support those. And currently we'll have a recommended list, a kind of compliant list. And then, obviously we'll need to, if we see new models that we haven't tested, that we have questions if they'll work, we'll need to add those to the compliance list. There'll also be a training component. There'll be a university training program online, and we're going to require install partners to have their installers that are going to install and commission generator integration to go through that in order to be able to set that up in the installer toolkit. So just be aware of that. Keep an eye out for that. I think that's launching towards the end of the month. And then, yeah, those are the main things about the generator. They've got to be kind of permanent. and grid sense or 2-wire start generators.
You guys get all that?
Yes.
All right, cool. You guys got anything else? All right, great. Ian, thank you so much for your time. This was super helpful. I know for me, and I'm sure everybody else on the call. So great catching up, getting the most updated info, and yeah, we'll talk to you soon. New York guys,
Yeah,
please. Sorry, Ian.
No, I was gonna say let's do this again in like a month when the generator stuff is out and some of these new features are fully rolled out, just so we all get on the same page on it.
For sure. If you also have a deck too for some of the things that you were talking about, we're still selling all virtual. I think we spoke about that last time we went to dinner, but whatever visual content that you could send over, that'll be super, super helpful, because I can make a separate deck for that too, and we can just make individual slides for it. So I know like the interface right there showing like the load shedding would be very helpful. Maybe like the way these things are kind of connected and what it looks like, and maybe like the hit list. I don't know if enphase has this, of like enphase versus Tesla, right? Why buy enphase or why choose? That would be very, very helpful to just show and pop up and on a slide in front of a customer and say, well, this is why it's $3 grand more, right?
Yeah, or even a hot sheet that we can send out with like proposals and emails so they can review it too.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll put some stuff together.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Ian.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so New York guys, you guys can hang on. Jersey guys, you guys are good to go.
Are you gonna update the contest? Or let
Yes,
us know?
I'm gonna do it in the group meet. I'm still waiting for 2 or 3 things to come through from guys. Please make sure that you're dispoing your deals. Looks like there's still a handful of them out there that haven't been final dispoed. Or you guys are waiting for paperwork or whatever it is, but yeah, please get them in, right? So obviously Friday's the last day, but I'll update the group me today to just kind of be like, this is where everyone is at. All right, but New Jersey guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Good luck
All right,
today.
see ya.
Let's get after
Thanks.
it. Yeah, New York guys, let's talk for a minute. All right, so I wanted to do this last week, but you guys all had appointments, so I did it with the Jersey guys. They got some. I think it was pretty helpful. So this shouldn't take more than 20 or 30 minutes, but I want to walk you guys through a couple of things very quickly that I've never actually done before. I just kind of assumed that everybody knew. So hopefully this will be helpful in kind of giving you the ability to organize everything and some additional knowledge. So I just want to do a very quick walkthrough here for the Helios home dashboard and how I use it. All right, so pull this up. All right, so this is the home dash, right? So that you guys are currently looking at, right? When I'm working with customers, I'm working out of the same dash, right? So this right here is final sign not approved, right? So I need to snag a bill for this guy, right? Creating leads are done here, right? If you're looking to create your own lead inside Helios, self-generated customer referral, the all appointments block is here. So one of the ways, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you hover over these boxes, it gives you a full export. You guys know this, right? So, you can print out the full report. If I click on this, it's going to export it to Excel. So this will be every appointment that I've ever been, that I've ever had essentially, or actually it'll pull up in here and then I can click on more and export report. So save as a spreadsheet. So if I click on this, this is just going to give me the list of every person that I've ever essentially spoke with. And it's going to break it down from most recent to oldest, right? Which will look like this. Any additional fields you guys want me to add in, I can add those in. If you guys like this kind of view here of how you can follow up with people, but I can add
you put phone numbers?
I can absolutely put phone numbers in here for sure.
That way you can just call down, because that's part of my struggle is clicking in, going in. It takes time. It's like.
Yep. What else do you want in here? Anything? I can add phone numbers. I can probably add disposition. I can probably add if it was completed or not. Is that what you guys want?
Yeah, the dispo field would be good.
Phone numbers, the status of the appointment, dispo field. Anything else?
Address.
Address is here. Okay. Yeah, I'll reformat this. But yeah, so it'll just be name, address, phone number, status of appointment, right? Completed, no show, need reschedule, et cetera, et cetera. disposition of whatever you put there, and then you can just create a new field here that's whatever notes, right? And then a lot of the times the way that I'll do this, I'll re-download this sheet every day, copy, right, and then drop this into a neighboring sheet here, right, and I'll just date them and I'll kind of go through that, right? So if I have a new sheet here, then I can just drop this in or not, right? So you can copy, drop it into a new sheet, and it's just one way to follow up, right? So this is like kind of pulling everything out onto the Excel side and keeping it organized. So I'll change that on the disposition piece, but that is, but this is a useful tool, right? So this is one of the things that I use. So, I think a lot of people didn't even realize that once you hovered over this, it gave you other options that you can extract it, because this is not like a great view to do anything in. And we're going to be changing this, obviously, but these things are going to take time on the Helios rebuild. Things are going to start to move, but this is just a quick, short solution. From reports, it breaks everything down individually here. My pending sales, finalized deals, disposed deals with PE. Install pipeline is a great report, right? I use this a lot too. I call my customers on the day of install, always, right? Hey, how's it going? How's everything? How are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. So I can see this in the pipeline, and I can see the install, my own, where is it? The installed customers. Oh, it's on calendars. So it's here, my install calendar. Right, so I can click on my install calendar, right, and I can see like who I have coming up in my queue, right? So I'll call these people, right, and make sure that they're good and they're happy and everything is good to go on the morning or the day of, right, or the evening. I'll just touch base with them at some point. Great opportunity to ask for referrals. So use this one a lot. Obviously, my appointments, I'll look at this. The survey calendar, hopefully you guys are looking at this, right, to see when the surveys are dropping on the board. So 3 very useful calendars right here, my appointments, so, your installs, and then your sales. On this, I don't really use any of this now that the cash loan tool is updated, except for the Infinity install map. I'll pull this out a lot, right? So I'll show people these are where our installs currently are, especially on the New York side. It's just so dense, right? This is Rockland County. This is all wetlands, really. There's nothing here. This is all Orange County, right? Expanding up into here, into Dutchess, and so on and so forth. So nice, useful little tool that I'll use here to pull this up and kind of show people. If you click on the pin, it'll give you the address. So for those homeowners that are saying, hey, do you have any installs in our area? That thing isn't updated constantly, but it will show you, other installs in the area. All right. I don't use really any of this. If you're looking for standalone agreements, right, you sell a roof separately, or you sell a generator or a battery, or these are where you'll find the additional agreements. Pending sales, right? Pending sales and things that you have open in the queue, finalized deals. This is kind of just basic stuff, but that's pretty much it on the homepage. Just wanted to kind of give you guys the insight on this. I'll have those things probably added in here probably by the end of day today, but some useful stuff here that you guys can play around with. All right. So that was that. So the thing that I want to talk about, what I'm seeing a lot of people that are moving, right? A lot of people are selling, a lot of people are buying. So one of the things that I'm seeing so much more than I've ever seen before is load calculation. So I want to talk about this for a couple minutes. So with the load calculation, right? I see a lot of you guys, you're putting in pending sales and you're saying this needs a load calculation, right? The better way to do this is if you go into Sunrun and you just leave all the months blank, right? It'll give you the estimated usage. Typically, when I see that number, I add 2,000 kilowatt hours to it. Okay. So I'll just drop that number in there, 2,000. So if it says 8, I'll do 10, right? Then at that point, I'm saying, look, this is based off of the AI, right, that we deal with, that takes all the homes in your area, all the average consumption, and builds it to forecast what we think that you're going to be using. This is that number. Plus 2,000 kilowatt hours, right? So I'm saying it's 8,500, 10.5 kW, because it's always better to have a little bit of a bigger system than a little bit of a smaller system, right? So this is that number. Then I'm starting to talk about some additional things. Now, this right now is a very, very good time, because once you have that established usage, the law dictates that I'm only allowed to provide you that amount of energy. So it's a very good opportunity for you to do some future planning here. Are you thinking about adding a pool? Are you thinking about switching your appliances over to electric? Are you thinking about adding an EV? Are you thinking about split packs? So have those conversations on the front end, right? Then whatever you and the homeowner agree upon. So it's 10.5, I'm going to add an EV. Typically I add 3,000 kilowatt hours for an EV, right? Per EV. So if you have 2, 16, right? If you're planning on that for the next year. So now I'm at 16.5. So the way that I'll do a load calc is it's a waste of time for the surveyor to do that because the information comes back not right anyways. It's easier. There's no historical usage for you to say, hey, this house has no established usage. I'm selling a 16.5 and I need a load calc to match that. Right? Because when we go into the house and we're like counting the outlets, counting this, counting that, it always comes out lower. The load calc is outdated, right? And it's very conservative, right? Where we want to be more on the aggressive side, right? Because everything is consuming more electricity than these load calcs are from 10 years ago, the templates, right? Now you're charging headphones and doorbells and all this other shit, right? So people are consuming more electricity. So that's the way that I'll do a load calc. I'll always try to size the system slightly on the larger side. I'm really having those conversations about, let's think about your electrical consumption over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? What are you adding? Because now is the time to do it, right? Build it up and use that. On the EV side, right? Every person that I'm talking about, we're starting to get more and more into these EVs, especially on the load calculation side, but even just in general, the charging stations, right? So we're starting to talk about this a decent amount. There's two ways for us essentially to install this, right? We can install the 240 volt plug, right? And then down the line, they can do that, right? They can buy the charging station that they want and essentially plug it into the 240 volt. All Teslas are hardwired. Right. So that is a little bit of a different thing. So the EVs are kind of unique and no one's really talking about this right now. And it's kind of this void, right? You go buy a Tesla, you go buy a Ford Lightning F-150, a Rivian, any of these cars that are starting to come out, you buy that and they're like, okay, cool. Good luck, sir. Right? Like you basically need to buy the charging station separate. You need to hire a local electrician that's going to be able to come out, wire all that stuff up. That is not a service that is provided by the auto company, right? So it's important to have these conversations, right? Because I'm selling a lot of these right now. If they're saying, oh yeah, I'm thinking about getting this in the future, this is absolutely something that you should add right now. So there's two different type of charging stations that I put in on the master adder sheet. Still recording this. Hold on, I want to turn this off.